Thank you guys. We're going to take up our offering, so let's just see. We'll take up that red envelope right now. If you're visiting with us today, you may wonder what we just did then. We believe in the laying on of hands, and we believe in impartation of the Spirit of God into people's lives. It's called prophecy. You find it in Scripture, you find it in the Old Testament, you find it in the New Testament, where there's an impartation of God's Spirit to encourage, to build the church. That's what just happened just then. And I would encourage you to value prophecy. Value above all the gifts. You know, Scripture tells us to, above every other gift, to value the word of prophecy over our lives. In Jesus' name. Thank you guys. Wonderful. Fantastic. Would you say thank you to those guys this morning? And we've got Zeal on today. We've got Zeal on. Is that Zeal's happening? Great. Have a great time, guys. That's it. Excellent. How many people like my haircut? You're saying, what on earth are you talking about, first of all? Okay, so you didn't notice. Okay, you said that. Okay, go to the makeup position. Okay, so I got a little text in the mail which says, come and get your haircut and get 5% discount. How many people... Come on, be honest with me today. How many people love their discounts? Keep your hands up. Come on, keep your hands up. Look at that. You love your discounts and your cheap Tuesdays or whatever it is. And so today we're talking about rewards. Okay, we're going to talk about rewards. And I enjoyed my reward of 5%. Now, if you go to your Bibles, I want to talk about this a little bit today, and I'd love for you to open up to Hebrews 11, 24 to 26. Okay, Hebrews 11, 24 to 26. Hey, if you've never been on a mission trip, hey, why don't you consider going to Nepal? You do not have to have any building skills, and you can build a house. I want to see pictures of those houses, okay? So, that'll be exciting to see. So, anyone been in Nepal? There you go. Look, none of you been. So, what a great opportunity to go to a Hindu country and share the good news of Jesus. That's fantastic. Okay, Hebrews 11. We're talking about rewards. Hebrews 11, 24 to 26. Do you reckon we can read this out loud together? Do you think it's possible? Yes? Yes? Okay, in French. In English, here we go. And it was by faith that Moses, when he grew up, refused to be called of Pharaoh's daughter, and he chose to share the oppression of God's people instead of enjoying the fleeting pleasures of sin. He thought it was better to suffer for the sake of Christ than to own the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking ahead to his great reward. So today we're going to talk about rewards. Now, everyone lifted their hand today. I saw your hand go up, and you all love your rewards. Now, just have a look at the next screen. You know, like Pastor Wayne was telling me, every Thursday he gets his free coffee. He gets his free coffee when he goes and fills his car with some petrol, you know, and whoa, free coffee, okay. And we all have these cards, and we get frequent flyer points. I went to the movie the other day because someone got me a movie card. I want to say thank you for my birthday or Christmas or whatever it was. And I rocked up to see a movie, and the girl said, "It's expired." My reward expired. I'm still upset about it. It was gone, spent. My reward was over. Today I want to talk about a reward that's eternal. Yes, very good. And will never expire. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. And if we look at it, if you've got your Bibles there and on your iPad, iPhone, whatever, Hebrews 11 says of Moses, he was looking forward to a great reward. And unlike my movie voucher, which expired, the reward that Jesus was looking for was God himself. Have you got that? His reward was God himself. In verse 24 and 26, it tells us the story. Moses as an infant. Now, this is an old story. You may not know it, but let me unpack it for you so we can understand what's happening. Moses was a little infant, and by the grace of God, he was saved from Pharaoh's death decree. And he grew up. He became a man, but he grew up as an adopted child of Pharaoh's daughter. And she looked after him. So he grew up in Pharaoh's own house. Yeah. And by growing up in Pharaoh's house, he was a son of power. He was a son of privilege. He was a son of wealth. And he had glory. He had splendor. He had the highlights of everything that Egypt could offer him. All of the indulgences was his as a son in Pharaoh's house. In fact, he could want anything, he could desire that as being a son in Pharaoh's house. And he was a prince. The nation was prosperous and he was a prince in that nation. And yet, Pharaoh's shadow would rest over him and also protect him. And he had this life of complete pleasure and ease. That's his story. He was living the dream. Living the dream. And sometimes people in those circumstances today, they have 50 million followers on Instagram and they tell you all about what they enjoy in life and all of their pleasures, and they have a lot of power and a lot of influence. And sometimes these people who are famous and got all the pleasures of the world, they advocate for their ideology. Sometimes it's a little bit off what they promote, but because they have power, they use it for their advantage. But Moses, according to Hebrews 11:26, by God's preserving grace, when he grew up, he did not forget who he was. He didn't forget. You know, he became more self-aware. I don't know if you remember that period in your life where you became more self-aware of your relationship with God. I remember I was standing in a recording studio and I became aware that my walk with God was not as strong as it should be. And I became very aware of the call of God, that self-awareness, that goal in life, the purpose of life, your destiny. For me, it was in a recording studio. The guys were in the room recording. I'd finished laying down my tracks. I'm sitting there reading my Bible, and God spoke to me about my calling. I didn't understand it fully, but I sensed the hand of God. And it doesn't compare to Moses at all, but he had that awareness of who he was. He knew he was the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He knew he was in Pharaoh's household. He knew he had wealth and power and strength. He had the entire world at his fingertips. And yet at the same time, he knew he was the son of Israel and he was descendant from Abraham. And he also saw his own people suffering. So here's this guy, extremely wealthy, powerful, had everything in life, and at the same time he recognized his past and who he was. He was a Hebrew, he was an Israelite, and he saw his own people suffering. And the scene when you read it, it's almost impossible to imagine what he does next. With the world all before him, everything available for him, Moses sets aside this life of comfort in Pharaoh's household. And it's almost unbelievable. And what he does is he turns and he identifies with all of these slaves, his own people. It's unbelievable that he would go from here to here. And no one pressured him, no one manipulated him. It was a choice that he made, and the Bible tells, by faith. He chose to live by faith. No pressure. No coercion. He decided by faith that he would abandon this world and choose this world. And many people in this church have done the same thing. You've made a decision that I no longer want to follow this way of life. I want to follow this way of life which involves Christ. And he did it. And you know, faith is a strange thing. Faith is just a really strange thing because sometimes you embrace things you can't see. It causes you to pull out your wallet and give to something when you don't really know the outcome. But by faith, you plant a seed. That's by faith. And even though you can't see it, you trust it and it's a reality. That's faith. And faith makes you kind of go where your senses may not lead, but God does. So by faith, Moses, he set aside his life of comfort. He walked away from the household of Pharaoh and he embraced the suffering of his people. And it's more than a t-shirt. Come on. Come on. Today, there's so many, people will just put on the t-shirt and go to the rally and have it in Hong Kong and rally and everything, and it's short-lived and then they don't go any further. But this is more than just a t-shirt. This is the guy who gave up everything, all the wealth in the world, and by choice and by faith, he decided to identify with a group of people, and he wasn't quite sure where it was going to take him, but he believed by faith that the direction he was going, that God would bless and guide and direct his path, but he wasn't sure where and how or what. More than a t-shirt. More than a t-shirt. The people of Israel at this time, they were slaves, and their rulers benefit from their labour. They worked from dawn to dusk, and all these rulers were cruel. And it's hard to see God's blessing on their life. They looked miserable. They had no vision, no nothing. And yet he makes the decision. He left his throne to identify with them. And that's great faith. That's great faith. But my question today is, why would he do it? Why? Why would he just do that? What caused him to do that? Because faith always has an object. I mean, why give it all away? Giving it all. We sing it, don't we? Away. Giving it all. Giving your car, your house, your money, your life, your pleasures, everything in your life, your superannuation. Giving it all. He gave it all away. We sing it. It's a nice song to sing, but doing it, he did it. He gave it all away, MJ. Why? Faith is not blind. Faith rests on what is fixed. And Moses' faith somehow was bound up with this group of people who were slaves. And Moses' faith was also based on a promise. And God's people would not always be a slave. And one day, this group of people would inherit a promise given by God. And somehow, Moses knew of that promise, and Moses knew of a reward as a result of that promise. And that was the thing that caused him to make that decision. Maybe his mum and dad shared with him the story of promise. Jochebed and Aaron shared that story, mum and dad, with Moses, saying, God gave us a promise that we would be here for several generations. Well, where did that promise come from? If you've got your Bibles, let's go to Genesis 15. There's a really powerful promise here. This is the story of Abram in Genesis 15. And Abram, what happens, this is years before. And what happens, let me unpack the story for you if you're not sure, in Genesis chapter 15. It says this, that there were 4 kings who had gathered together, and they were upset. They didn't want to pay taxes anymore to a kingdom which was up in the north. And these 4 kings in the 12th year decided, we ain't paying any more taxes to Canberra, okay? Well, it wasn't Canberra, but it was the state above it, okay? These 4 kings, we're not going to pay any more taxes. And one